Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Getting through a circuit like this is a miracle. All these drivers have to perform a miracle 15 times over here today. This is the longest circuit that is still in use today. It's a toll road, basically, in Germany, but it is the one circuit in the world that every driver has one pang of fear that settles in their stomach. This is the green hell, the industry farten version of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and it's here with us and the major series, round 3, the 1967 German Grand Prix, here with us on the Global Sim Racing channel. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone watching around the world for coverage of what has been one of the most successful year-on-year series out there in the world of sim racing. My name is Jake Sperry, and alongside me in the booth for today's action is Joey Atterbury. Daniel Costello is in the director's chair. He swivels round and he finds he's got cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But this at the home of sim racing, the Nürburgring, the Nordschleife proves time and again that it's the one circuit that always delivers when it comes to racing by just how intense it is. Let's get a little bit of a snippet of what makes this track so incredible with our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Most modern high-end series might use the GP circuit nowadays, but it will certainly never hold the respect and awe that the Northern Loop commands. Though it can be and is usually used in conjunction with the Grand Prix circuit for competitions in real life, here on iRacing, drivers can harken back to a time gone by and just run the 13-mile behemoth this place is known for. Nicknamed the Green Hell by three-time F1 World Champion Sir Jackie Stewart, it is often regarded as the greatest test of a driver anywhere on the planet. Just looking at the stats will tell you why. More than 150 turns and close to 1,000 feet in elevation will pass you by in a single lap. Simply memorizing the course is half the battle for most drivers, let alone being fast. It goes without saying that this place is dangerous. Many fast corners lack runoff, there's blind apexes everywhere, and in a couple cases, even modern cars will get airborne. The list of famous turns is pretty lengthy, but some of the more notorious are places such as Flugplatz, Miss Hit Miss, Bravery Corner, and of course, the ever-iconic Carousel. It's not just the places where you've got to move the wheel that get attention too. The Dottinger Hoa stretches for more than 1.5 miles in length. While you would think this circuit would mainly be limited to the track days most gearheads flock to for a chance to lap the ring, it still sees quite a bit of wheel-to-wheel combat. The 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, the VLN Series, and the World Touring Car Championship all still take the track to this day. Many race fans consider this the mecca of road racing, and any driver who is able to push the limits here often quickly garners their respect.
This is a circuit above circuits. This is a monster. This is one of the very few tracks in the world that actually garners respect when you hear its name uttered, and it is the one circuit in the world, Joey, that basically screams above all else, this is simply one brilliant 12.94 miles of driving paradise for some, but I would say driving purgatory for others.
It is all about driving the racetrack, attacking the racetrack, and we're going to throw about 30 of these Lotus 49s here on the Nordschleife, and you get the track map right here. Like Jake was saying, 154 turns. That's the only time that I am going to ever be able to remember which turn number these cars are at throughout today, but just under 13 miles. And when I look at the timing and scoring sheet, it's about 6.5 minutes per lap around this place. And couple things to note with this car on this specific track. There's some very tall curbs. These cars, they don't like it. There's also several jump sections around here. You really have to make sure the car is settled when you go over those jumps because, trust me, we will be catching air over every single one of them. We always have the classic ups and the downs, the carousels throughout, and then once again, that Dottinger Hoa, that huge long straightaway to end out the lap here at the Nordschleife.
There is so much where it can go wrong. You've got, of course, the fantastic early section up to Flugplatz, the run to Arenberg Corner, up through Ardenau first, and then the top of the circuit through Kallenhard, hit-miss, Vershaven, and up at Bergwerk. The run down, of course, to the carousel is one of the most beautiful runs of flat-out action out there. And then there's the top of the circuit, Hoheach through Wipperman, Eschbach, Brunchen. That's pretty much crash central through that section, and then through Flanschgarten and over towards the Golden Kopf Corner. It is such an almighty track when you can hook it together, but the odds of that are the odds of the lottery. But this is a championship, and as such, there is always a lot to keep an eye out on. When it comes to the Atlantic, it's Jesper Eriksson who is up on top and 42 points clear at the top of the standings, ahead of Oscar Fredriksson in the Force Esports 1 car. 42 points, the margin there. Ever consistent Garen Batten finds himself in third, with Jeff Schmeier, the second of the Dog Bear cars, in fourth position. Daniel Holmer finds himself fifth, the second of the Force Esports cars. You then have Adam Thatcher-Ponty, a good friend of ours here at the Global Sim Racing channel. He finds himself sixth, with Lynn Kinchlow in seventh position, the first of two Udox Gooby cars, Jason Wallot, the other one in eighth place, leaving Sam Harper in ninth position, and David H. Baker, who reaches the 100 club today in terms of racing, rounding out the top 10. And it's looking like it's going to be a 4-horse race here, Joey, when it comes to the team's championship.
Right now, it's Force Esports, the first team out there, 1,229 points total. They are kind of taking the torch and leading the way right now. Fusion Gold in second place, Dog Bear Bite also kind of equal distant, about 140 points to second, and then about 80 points or so back to third, and Grizzly TFR back here fourth. Udox Gooby hanging out inside the top 5, and then a couple more teams, Easy Grass Yorkshire, Evolve Sim Sports Atlantic, and Sapphire Sim Sport Atlantic round out the 8 Pro Atlantic team standings.
Oh, Joey, there's a soft spot in my heart. You said Yorkshire and not Yorkshire, and I'm very, very happy about that. But we do have ourselves some wonderful action soon to take itself forward in about the next 2 minutes or so. So let's get an understanding of what this race is all about, what they have to do. It's a 15-lap race here today. Doesn't sound like much, but you times it by 6.5 minutes, they're going to be in the cooker for about an hour and a half. It's round 3 of 11, so there's still a long way to go for those who are looking for the championship overall here in Atlantic, and then the final rounds in December. And of course, they are switching cars and formats each time they're out there. The Lotus 49, one of the toughest cars out there in the iRacing service to go and hook up correctly. They do have, though, one spare car, so if they do break it, they do have a T car they can jump back into. They just have to hope they don't break that one as well. That's going to be some of the troubles, though, Joey, that they're dealing with. But 154 turns, curbs are high. This is old school as old school gets.
Absolutely, and like I said, it's going to be attacking the racetrack. I think that the cars, they have the potential to spread out around this place, and not only that, trying to make a pass anywhere around here, it requires cooperation between both parties. If you just try to go down there and place the car kind of in an area, you might have a competitor not even looking in the mirrors expecting it, so you just have to present it, and really, it's a two-person dance around this place if you're going to make a pass.
It absolutely is. We're here for more than racing, as is usual with the major series. We are also here for charity, and today we are here with Beyond Blue. For more than 20 years, people in Australia have placed their trust in Beyond Blue as a reliable source of mental health information, support, and hope. They are a big blue door for many in the community, a safe and reliable space for millions of people to access information, advice, and support, whether they're well and want to stay that way, unsettled or struggling and need support, or in recovery and want to connect. Beyond Blue, earlier, easier, together. We are just at the end of practice. We are going to be taking ourselves over to the grid, which is brought to you, of course, by the Majors Garage, home of free baseline plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more by simply clicking on our link in the description below. Also, if you use our special discount code MAJORSGSRC, you'll get 10% off. Grid, though, is set, and it will be on the front, Togo Hesada. No surprises there with his pace. He is legendary when it comes to this machinery, with Oye Zamayoa alongside him for company. Topi Korteniemi will start third alongside Brian Boomsma, who is the first of the real contenders, so to speak. Leo Sequeiro starts fifth, with Gary Ho in sixth position. Jesper Eriksson, the championship leader, will go from seventh with Jorge Nieva in eighth place. Jeff Schmeier starts ninth. Edward Shelley rounds out 10.
Then we got Jan Steffen here in 11th, Martin Pearson in 12th, and Sam Harper. I believe we're going to get the rest of the names as the RPMs are already up on this standing start here. Harper, Gary Thomas, Garen Batten, and a green flag, Jake.
Yeah, and it's going to be quick here, and we are going to be underway. It's a very short run to the Sabine Schmitz curve to go and start. Last four drivers being Luca Fingo, Travis Henson, Ray Partridge, and Melvin Orkerson here today down the hill. They will start for their first of 15 attempts, and often this is the most dangerous because the tyres are cold and everybody's scrambling about trying to give themselves some space in the early goings. Everybody rushing through the right and the left then of this opening section of lap. It's a nice, comfortable run through the Hoi Chang and now up over towards the Quiddlebacker Ho. It is some nice respite early. Hesada, your leader.
And I think that was Pearson going side by side as we come up over the jump section. And one thing to note early, don't get in too deep. Oh, and there's already a problem. That is going to be some big-time damage. Oh, more people collected. Martin Pearson involved.
Karen Batten caught up in it, and that's big for his championship efforts. Jonathan Jourdain, look at it, it's still going here, all the way down through on the run to Arenberg. Luca Fingo has been through the ringer on this one. Awful start for them up at Flugplatz, but that's what you expect. Up over the top of the hill, Joey, you're going to lose all four wheels off of the contact patches, and you're basically praying that you're landing straight.
We talked about it when we were covering the track map. You get air in these cars, and not just a couple inches, but they launch themselves over these jumps. You better be prepared for it. You better be quick on the pedals, and if you're not, we saw when you get caught out.
Well, it's not a happy 100th start for David H. Baker. He's out of the race. So, too, is Jorge Nieva. So they will have a long way to go. They do have that one pass prepared. So out is a colloquial term at the moment. They will have a way back through. Watching Korteniemi here, Brian Boomsma's done very well off of this start to put himself into a position, but I think we're going to take a look back at just how it all explodes off of this start. Tiger Hesada gets the perfect launch here off of this run forward. Exactly what he wants, unchallenged into the opening corner. But there's Tom Guest, who really didn't go anywhere off of the start. He absolutely planted the car, waited for everyone to go, and it's full damage limitation for him. There was already a spinner at the Sabine Schmitz curve, one of his Fusion Gold teammates.
Yeah, and then really all of the busy stuff happened over the first jump, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Flugplatz down there, and I saw Jorge Nieva. That's usually one of the fastest 49 guys. He went off all by himself, so definitely catching out not only some of the drivers that have less experience, but some of the best experienced drivers too.
Yeah, absolutely everyone can get caught out the Nürburgring. We're going to see it now here on the GSRC replay. So this is Garen Batten's view of it. So they come together 2 into 1 and up the hill. He's trying to avoid everyone and bang, there's the contact. The wheel goes chasing him there from Luca Thingo. But that for Garen Batten is not much more that he can do except be a passenger at that point. He did everything he could to try and get out of it, but coming up to the crest there is the one place you don't want an accident on this circuit, if there is any place to have an accident on this circuit.
No, it's blind. You're trying to manage the car, and plus everybody is so bunched up being the first lap, so there's just a lot of variables going on as we check in on Jesper Eriksson, currently here in 6th place, running all over the back of Leo Sequeiro, and this is one of the high-speed sections on the racetrack, and look at him just huck the car in there and slide it through the corner.
Absolutely immense from Leo Sequeiro, and Jesper Eriksson is probably looking around going, oh my, they are definitely trying to throw it. First time through though, the dreaded carousel. This is the most iconic corner, Joey, in all of motorsport.
Yeah, especially here on the Nordschleife, and we see so many cars get it wrong, but Here comes a pass attempt. Jesper Eriksson's going to go through, and look at that. Already up into 5th for the number 37 car.
He might as well be an Esper. He was so psychic in the way that he knew that Leo Sequeira was going to struggle out of the carousel, absolutely attacking, heading up towards Hohe Arc, and that was perfectly sorted in terms of the move. GSRC replay then here. This is Ray Partridge in the Dog Bear bike car. This is coming up then through the rights and the lefts. He just puts it a little bit too far out. That's heading towards Callenhard, and there's secondary contact that absolutely smashes through. Nothing that Ray can do. He was very much a passenger on this opening lap.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a tough one there, just trying to avoid some other cars. And this is the live pictures on your screen. So that's Togo Hisada currently leading the way. Oye Zamayoa giving chase only about half a second back. And I gotta say, Brian Boomsma also doing a fantastic job in the 3rd spot. Topi Kortanyami, that's really kind of your 4-car train up front.
It is, and that's where it's going to be key. You got 3 drivers who you'd expect to be up front. Brian Boomsma is probably the one who's showing the most promise at this moment in time compared to Kortanyemi, Zamio and Hisada. He's definitely got a turn of cadence about him today. Heading on through then towards the end of the opening lap then, Togo Hisada has driven this circuit many a time before. He's got a confidence about this place, a swagger about it, but you also have to remember he's driving at about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning in Japanese time at this point, so it's very, very early. Here's Gary Ho. He's also getting a run through that miniature carousel, and he's getting up the hill, and they're all starting to slide over those curves.
Well, and covering, you know, the classic 49s, you see a lot of those drivers coming and racing here in the majors, including Gary Ho, Togo Hisada, Oye Zamayo, Topi Kortanyami. It's all great to see a lot of the crossover. Not only are they racing over there, they're also racing over here. It's one big, happy racing family.
It is, and here is Gary Ho, who is on the Dottinger Herb for the first time. There is the Taurus entrance on the right-hand side they've just passed. If you want to pay to go out and have a lap around this circuit, you absolutely can. Believe it or not, this was the first circuit, Joey, that I ever managed to get driven around on. It's the first one I've had. It's not bad to say first one off your list is the Nordschleife.
No, that's not so bad at all. I gotta ask you, which car were you in? Were you a passenger or a driver? And did you find that oh shoot handle rather fast?
Well, I was a passenger, and I was in a 7-seater Ford Mondeo.
Ooh. How many other passengers were in there, Jake?
It was just me and the driver, and she was a fantastic driver. And you'd find passes left and right as Martin Persson comes in, and he's going to get some service, and I believe that will be the fast repair and off and away again as Kortanyemi stays on the back of Boomsma. But it's amazing when you're here. I tell you what, sim racing sometimes doesn't do enough justice. You go through a section of track like the Foxhole, heading up through towards Ardenau first. Both of our heads were basically in our laps driving up that section. There are so many G-forces around this circuit.
Oh, look at this. Topi Kortanyemi is going to lose it, and he stays off of the wall. Hopefully he's got a big enough gap, which he does. No damage at all for the number 25, and here comes Ericsson. He's going to go ahead and pass him just based off of the momentum, but talk about putting your heart out of it, and I'm sure he's still catching his breath.
Wow. Whoopa! Topi Kortanyemi getting very, very close to the barriers. And I tell you what, he will need a new visor, a new helmet. He'll need new overalls when he comes back into the pit. He'll need new everything out there, because that was as scary as it gets. Up over the hill, at Flugplatz, out of control and struggling. That is something you don't say, but someone like him does. Martin Persson continuing on his battle in through Arenberg corner. That's Sam Harper just in front of him that he is trying to find a way through. No dice at the moment, but now he chases through this section down the hill towards compression, and this through the Foxhole is the place where the G-forces just absolutely hit.
It's the huge compression down there, and then you spit up the hill here, come up over the crest, and it actually takes you by surprise how quickly this slower section comes up right on board here with Martin as he just follows through this train of quite a few cars, chasing Sam Harper, Tom Guest, Jonathan Jourdain, all right in front of him. So Martin doing a great job, and right now, all you can really do is follow in the tire tracks. You see him kind of presenting the car to the inside, filling up the mirror, saying, hey, I'm here, get a move on.
Yeah, and that move on's going to be important as Pearson. It's a huge group, big lunge down the inside at Kesselchen, and that there was nearly Sam Harper overtaken with that group led by Melvin Orkerson at the moment. They now go through the triple right of miss, hit, miss, or as Jimmy Broadbent loves to say, it's miss, 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 because you can never get the apex right.
That's how I feel whenever I drive it, and just, you gotta feel here that Melvin is definitely the cork in the bottle. Jonathan Jourdain in that pink car just giving chase, and you see all of the hungry wolves right behind just waiting for their spot at the dinner table.
Yeah, and I think there are lots of drivers who would consider themselves hungry for the position that Melvin Orkerson holds in the Forza Esports 2 car at this moment. First and foremost, Jonathan Jourdain wants to be that first driver who goes through in the number 15, but look at Courtiniemi, he's got an angle and he's through on that long back stretch compared to Jesper Eriksson, the overall championship leader coming into today. That's a comfortable move, Finn versus Swede for that position, and I wouldn't argue around this track. I would definitely try and leave a little bit of extra room if possible.
I think that's exactly what Eriksson did. He realized that Toby made that early mistake, and he's a very fast racing car driver. There's no point in holding him up, especially if you get a car frustrated behind you. Here you got 4 cars frustrated right behind. Was that Pearson losing it?
Yeah, Pearson and Harper are in the barriers together, and they're pretty much connected. They're trying to break free from each other, but look at them. They're wheel to wheel. They can't separate. Finally, they do, right on the apex, and that would have been scary for Gary Thomas, who went by them both. But just like that, Pearson and Harper, I think, are going to look at each other a little bit red-faced at each other going, how did that happen?
It's kind of like the moments in American football over here where they smash their face masks together and all of a sudden they get hooked together and they're literally stuck looking at each other like, hey, how do we get out of this?
Yeah, that's the sort of time where you got to go, oh, hang on, time out, we need to get things sorted. Take a look at a replay here, and this is where it happened. So Sam Harper's approaching this group. There's an absolutely magical run through this section. Oh, takes the tap from behind, and then ultimately, it's where do you go from there? Look, it's pretty much hooked over the top of the wheel.
Yeah, you go backwards, I'll go forwards. No, you turn left, I'll turn right. This isn't working, let's try it new. Yeah, let's start all over.
It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that a 5-year-old's played for about 3 months. It's almost impossible to work out where you're supposed to get it back together without peeling the stickers off, Joey, and putting them back on again.
Like a couch going through a doorway.
Pretty much. That was exactly how it is. Gary Ho, P7, still looking at Leo Sequeiro through the fabled Stefan Beloff S. And Stefan Beloff, the sort of driver, Joey, that a lot of people look at and go, well, what makes Stefan Beloff so special? Stefan Beloff was the sort of driver that was going to be better than Ayrton Senna.
Well, I think that there's a lot of drivers out there. If you give them the opportunity, I think that there's plenty of talent out there. I think that that's one curious thing about motorsports, right? We always praise our gods that we've had success from, with success from history, but there are so many what-if stories. What if this driver was given the chance? What if he was in the right car at the right time? And I feel like you could go through history and there's a lot of finger pointing of what if a driver had the opportunity.
Jan Stefan then and Garen Batten together on circuit. They've both used their one fast repair, and Garen Batten's recovery starts here. He'll be hoping for another half a dozen, if not a dozen drivers from here, Joey, run into troubles over the course of these 14, or which will soon be 13 remaining laps of this race. So there is still a long way to go. Now this is 3 wide on the Dottinger. Melvin Orkerson is going to lose out on position. He'll go to the back. Jonathan Jourdain side by side with Tom Guest. And who here is going to say, be my guest, be my guest?
Well, I think that Jonathan Jourdain is probably in the best track position as long as he can keep the momentum along the fast left-hand kink here. Oh, he's going to get edged out by Tom Guest, just sliding across the track a little bit. So Jonathan Jourdain lifts out of it to survive another day. Let's complete another lap and turn it over to lap number 3 now.
Yeah, very much having to lift out, heading towards Tiergarten, which is not the place you want to be going side by side unless it is the final lap of the race. That much is very, very sure in terms of that. So this is going to be a race where a lot of the drivers here today who are looking at their points, or if they have a bad round today, Joey, I would say it's not the end of the world, because you've got specialists in this field who are racing because they love this car, like these two, Hisada and Zamayo, are out at the front of the field. If you hold yourself anywhere close to these driving sort of pace, it's a crowning achievement. And with everyone else struggling to get points, you're going to find that if you're having a good day, you're not gaining as much. If you're having a bad day, you're not losing as much.
It's kind of one of these specialty races where you have to look at it. Yeah, you want to gather as many points as possible for every single championship round available, right? That's the ultimate goal. However, when you come against these specialists, like you're saying, Jake, it kind of throws a little bit of that out the window. Yeah, you want to get points, but it's more about challenging yourself, bettering yourself in these types of specific cars where you're going to be up against literally the best in the world out here. If you can go up and keep up with the best in the world, I feel like that just gains momentum, and if you can gather the points and have the momentum, it just continues to roll your way.
Down the hill through Callanhard and now through the middle sector of the circuit, and it's a very long middle sector that you have there. You sort of have to break this circuit up. I'd say top of Ardenau Forst is the first sector, and then all the way to the carousel would be the second sector, and then anything else on top of that is considered last sector. Maybe you could argue Flansgarden is the start of the final sector. So it's definitely a very tough circuit in the traditional sense, Joey, to split up nicely into threes.
And I think driving it, you could probably argue that it all blends into one. Maybe the straightaway, kind of stands out. But you're right, there is definitely sections of this racetrack. And I would say, yeah, we're through the 2/3 section right now. We're approaching into the second third of the racetrack. And it's pretty interesting. You went through the lowest part back there a handful of corners ago, and now you have this huge, long uphill straightaway. Really use this motor for what it is.
Yeah, and this is one of the most incredible motors out there in terms of racing, Joey. It's the Ford DFV Cosworth engine. It's an engine that won in 15 consecutive Formula One championship seasons. I don't think there's a single engine right now that lasts one championship season anymore.
The technology certainly moves at a different pace nowadays, and you're right. This motor is incredibly stout and way ahead of its time.
Absolutely. Here's Garen Batten continuing on his push at the moment, going through some of the earlier stages, heading towards the Hudson-Barch corner out on track, which was very nicely pointed out by the nice sign that said Hudson-Barch, written in Yokohama sponsorship there. Absolutely brilliant work on the track design. And speaking of which, this is a very unique circuit in the sense that it's one of the only circuits out there that has that chalking all over the road that gives it such a unique character.
Graffiti, right? It's just got it, like you said, it's a character. And I think that's one of the cool part about the Nordschleife. And like you were saying, you can go get a ride around here, you can go drive around here. It is completely unlike the rules and restrictions of a lot of other modern racetracks.
Oh, it absolutely is, I would say, a unicorn in terms of circuits compared to others. There's Martin Persson, who is continuing on his race at the moment, still stuck with Sam Harper at this point in the Fusion Gold car, but still, you would have to argue that these drivers are starting to pack together. If you're not on your own, you're with a friend, and that's going to be the key to the race. If you've got a friend to work with, you've got an opportunity. If you're on your own, that's where the circuit starts to sort of creep in against you here with all these trees around. You're often looking about this and going, oh, well, what if I do miss my braking point by a 0.2 of a meter? I will go off.
Yes, and the buddy system, kind of like what you were saying. You want to be racing with your friends out there. And when we look back here, Jonathan Jordan, Sam Harper's not far back. Martin Pearson, who we were just looking at as well, Gary Thomas, those are pretty much the last cars of the group that have not had an incident yet. Everybody further back, remember, we were checking in on Garen Batten, Jan Stephen. They all had that first lap incident. They're about 45 seconds plus behind this group. So the buddy system, right? If you lose your buddy, you got to wait a long time, and you're not trying to wait around in a race.
No, you're really not. At worst, you're about 3 minutes adrift, as highlighted by Jorge Nieva at the moment. Travis Henderson, Ray Partridge, you'd probably put in that similar sort of mix. But this is such a long lap, and you do have to be so switched on with it. We are expecting pit stops at certain points in this race, because we're not expecting them to go an hour and a half around this circuit without having a form of stopping on it. So you're very much going to have to be switched on no matter which way you're looking at where do I need to be, how do I need to be placed. Sami Yoa is certainly a prime example of that. He's happy to follow in the wheel tracks of Togo Hosada in the early stages of this race, because there is no benefit for him at the moment, Joey, of jumping up into the race lead. The Bass driver is very happy just to sit behind and wait for opportunity to arise later on.
And I know that we just got a purple fast lap from Togo Hosada, but I really do feel like these two kind of are in cruise control. Togo Hosada was doing 633s, maybe 632s in practice, and that was a 637. I know he's got a full tank of fuel on board, but I think that they realize they do have pace on everybody today.
Jonathan Jourdain moving over to the right-hand side of the circuit. Melvin Orkerson, who is there alongside in the 959. Not much he can do about that. Through goes Jourdain, and he will jump up an extra position. That will put him into 13th place once again as these two continue on their race, rushing through towards Tiergarten Corner, which is one of the final ones out there on the lap. So their focus will be, we've got another lap ticked off, we've got another one still to go in this one. Do want to highlight as well as Jesper Eriksson finds himself away in 5th position, doing everything he needs to, jumping over Flugplatz. The battle on for the final spot in the top 10 at the moment, with Bjorn Ackermann, the German, and Daniel Blomqvist, who is there to sweep. So you've got those two in 10th and 11th, the 12 and the 988, who are also having a very good showing.
I love watching these cars jump over these bumps, and we're going to get a GSRC replay right here. This is Eriksson coming down the hill. Let's see exactly what happened. Ooh, he just mistimed that left-hander at the end of the straightaway, and thankfully was able to keep it out of the grass for too long and back onto the racetrack. So talk about a very, very close call for that number 37.
Championship leader has to be very, very alert around this track, and it's not often, Joey, that the Nürburgring allows you to get away with a warning.
No, it is not very often, and especially at near 200 miles an hour at that section of the racetrack. So I think Jesper Eriksson, very, very thankful, and I'm sure that he jotted that one down to never do it again.
I wouldn't want to be running off there, going out then of the Dottinger Herf through that one incredible quick right-hander out there at Tiergarten and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Antonius Busch is one place you do not want to get it wrong out on circuit. Persson continuing then to shadow Melvin Orkerson this time for position. So now it's Orkerson falling back into the clutches here up the top of the hill at Ardenauer first. And this is where you get this first real respite on the lap. And there's the side-by-side. Orkerson on the right-hand side can't get up through the gears quick enough. It's a unique set of gearing here. You got to do it the old-fashioned way. You got to put the clutch in.
Yes, and sometimes, you know, you don't necessarily have to use the clutch on the upshifts per se, but for sure on the downshifts. And I know that if you don't time it right, you get a box full of neutrals a whole lot more often than you want.
And sometimes getting those boxer neutrals is going to absolutely stall out that pace. Now there is Jan Stefan and Garen Batten once again, and that's Batten through this time then on the Dottinger Herf. So he will now gain an extra place, and that will put him up into 21st position. The issue that they've got, it's a long way to Jorge Nieva at this moment in time. Now, just trying to consider lap times here. It was a 6:40 last time for Jorge Nieva. Garen Batten, by comparison, a 6:46, so losing 6 seconds a lap. Here is Bjorn Ackermann, and I think he's just lost the place to Daniel Blomqvist. So Blomqvist now inside the top 10 from starting 20th.
Yeah, nicely done. Up 10 positions so far for Daniel Blomqvist in that 988. Ackermann just right on the tail, though. So I wonder if Bjorn says, I'm going to follow or I'm going to charge it up the inside a little here. He's certainly putting the pressure on, Phil in the left mirror, Phil in the right mirror, but once he got up close, he definitely lifted off the throttle, realized he wasn't in the posture to make a pass there, so we have to wait for another opportunity, or maybe even just follow in the tracks and try to gain some time.
Well, he does have the most fantastic unicorn on the front of his number 12 machine, and he is trying to make sure that that unicorn gets noticed in the mirrors here of what is Daniel Blomqvist at this moment. You really do notice that it is old school, and it's all about the details when it comes to iRacing, such as getting the old school helmet and goggles out.
It's pretty cool. I kind of wish that we could do that more in the other cars, like bring the vintage feel into some of the new GT3 cars. It would be pretty fun, wouldn't it?
It would, and I think that the devil is always in the details when it comes to sim racing, and everyone talks about, oh, you know, we want all these big things and we want this track and we want that track, but really the immersion factor is it's the tiny things that you don't notice. You turn around and go, oh, I didn't realise that they even went to that far in detail, and that's what hooks people in.
Well, and what is really cool about a lot of the vintage communities, because we cover the 79s and the 49s with GSRC, is you were talking about the 3 pedals, you were talking about the shifters and the wheels, and a lot of these drivers, they'll go out there and get a replica 49 wheel, or they'll use the H-pattern shifter with all 3 pedals. They'll take it to that full extreme and really put themselves in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and while this battle for 11th goes on, it's closed back up once again for position number 3 out on track, and that's someone off the road. That's Tom Guest, who has found out what makes this circuit so difficult, and that would have been at Brunchen, which is the corner of corners that you don't want to go off at.
A little unfortunate for that 058, because Tom Guest had made a few passes and had really driven up the road from some of his competitors, so now he's going to have to do it all again. This is Topi Kortuniemi going by Brian Boomsma on the straightaway. Remember, Topi had that problem, that amazing save on lap number 2. Well, he's come back and he's going to chop the nose and almost contact between the two.
Brian Boomsma was trying to stick his nose where it didn't necessarily belong there. He was trying to think, I could sneak one back on the 4Racer car, the Pike from Beach Racing team that is out there. One of the most beautiful team names out there in terms of its finished lore and history. I'm sure, Zebra can help with that, but Brian Boomsma, no respect to a legend like Kortuniemi. He throws it down the inside of the Sabine Schmitz curve.
Remember, we were talking about the specialist. Well, Kortuniemi is definitely a specialist in these 49s as we get Harper going by Tom Guest on the straightaway. Brian Boomsma taking it to some of the best here in these vintage cars, and that's really what gets you the confidence. That's really what steps you up that next level as the driver.
Yeah, that pretty much says to anybody who think Brian Boomsma's just here to get a good score, he's here for more than that. He's here to race. Gary Thomas then dealing with his race at the moment, and of course he finds himself just ahead of Melvin Orkerson, who has been just slowly falling backwards through the pack, with Thomas doing what he needs to. Tom Guest, Sam Harper, the entire middle of the pack, very closely put together in the early goings. Now, here is Kortuniemi once again, who is not going to give up through Schwedenkreuz corner and into Arenberg, this 120-degree right-hander. Got to hook it as close to the curb without touching it as possible, and then under the bridge, you're now looking for the climb up the hill.
Just patience is going to be the name of the game here for Topi, that black number 25. And the reason I say that, it was a 6-minute, 36-second lap that last time for Topi. Brian Boomsma was a 6:40. And remember, Topi was able to get by, but just the great racecraft from that orange 21 was able to pull him back into the 3rd place position. So I think as long as Topi stays patient, he'll be able to execute a pass eventually.
It was the fastest lap of the race over that last go through. Nobody was able to hold, quote-unquote, a candle in the wind. Bjorn Ackermann close to Arenberg now, with Daniel Blomqvist just in front in the 988, holding that station. They are very isolated, these two. They're 10 seconds clear of Martin Persson, and it's a full 24 seconds to Jeff Schmeier in 9th place, who's having a very underratedly quiet day. So too Edward Shelley in 8th. That's heavy over the curb by Ackerman.
Yeah, really jumped it over that apex curb, and ever since Ackerman got passed by that 988, it seems like he doesn't really want to be in 11th place position. He wants to go up there in that clean air, and I don't blame him either, especially at the Nordschleife. Following a car, it's nice to have the slipstream, but sometimes you want to see exactly what you're approaching. You want to see your brake marker, your turn-in points, and your apexes.
It's dictating tempo, isn't it, Joey? If you're out there in front, you know that you can dictate the tempo of the race. You can dictate how you're going to take every corner. Like right now, Courtniemi wants nothing more than to get past Brian Boomsma, but he doesn't have a clean space to do it. He would love to be in front.
Well, and I also question, you know, when Boomsma threw it down the inside of turn 1 on this lap, how much are you going to upset Courtniemi? And I don't think that Topi is going to be the one that's going to be kind of pushed over the edge, but here comes the pass. He's going to go around the outside of Boomsma up the hill and has to lift out of it.
Oh, Brian has no fear. He is absolutely going to take this race to Topi Courtniemi, and Courtniemi's going to realise, oh, that's how you want to play. I'm going to have to get a little bit coy, and if you're going to be coy with me, we'll play Go Fish.
I 100% agree with everything you're saying, and it's patience, right? Patience has to come from Topi. He is the faster of the two drivers, but Brian Boomsma came to race, and there's the mistake out of the carousel, letting Topi through.
And that was just being too aggressive in. He caught the berm on the inside, and that pretty much just shocked him through. Now, he's going to find that he was actually, no, I'll correct myself there. He was actually too high, Joey, coming into the carousel, and as such, the car really compressed down when he went into turn and just unsettled him, and he had to get out of the carousel.
And the key is, once you get out of the carousel, you lose all of that grip, you lose all of the banking, you're in the marbles, and there's just nothing you can do at that point. You can crank the steering wheel, but trust me, it's not going to turn any sharper.
No, it's definitely not. And when you're racing up against gravity, you're pretty much on a one-track line through there. Gary Ho, P7, still looking at Chequered and the championship leader, Jesper Eriksson, who finds himself in that 5th place at the moment. And this is an important run in the context right now as they go through, because these drivers are keeping Eriksson pretty much alert at this moment. It is a 1.2 second gap. You feel when it goes to 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, then that's the opportunity that you're looking at. Outside of that, that's going to be a difference maker there. And I have just got to know that for the first time in this race, the lead gap has clawed up over a second.
Yeah, I see that as well as we keep on Gary Ho right here, chasing Leo Chequered. You were calling it, keeping Jesper Eriksson honest up there in the 5th place. And one thing that Eriksson has to worry about is, I think that Leo and Gary, they race these cars a little bit more regularly than that driver, the number 37. So if I was to consider maybe just the confidence throughout the entire run, it's going to fall to that 22 in the 4, and it looks like Nieva was having some more problems, finds himself back on pit road.
Yep, so Jorge Nieva, I think, is going to be day done here with that. He has absolutely clattered the barriers down here through the middle of the circuit. Oh, 1 and then 2 into the back. Rear tire's gone, and there's not much more you can do there. He's just caught the inside curb, I think, a little bit too much, and it has just spat him out, and it is as simple as that. Catch one curb incorrectly here. Good night.
The guardrails are incredibly close. The curbs are very, very tall, so they can upset the car. And you're right, it just happens so fast. And you got a feel for Nieva. He's definitely one of my favorite drivers to watch. One of the fastest guys in the 49s, and really didn't get the opportunity to see that today.
No, we didn't really get that chance, but you have to earn that chance. And if you get into trouble early, you are going to have to be very reliant on everything else out there. So now this is Sam Harper getting himself caught out then on the exit, sliding about, dips down on the brakes. Can he keep the car pointing in the right direction? No, he can't. It was unsettled. And again, this is a very light car. This is going to be a very tail-happy car, not in the sense that tail-happy, you've got no grip. Tail-happy because you've got so much torque trying to go through those rear wheels.
I really call it a driver's car. The drivers have to literally grab the wheel and muscle this thing around the racetrack.
That's Ericsson.
Oh no, problems, yeah, for the 37. Is it a slowdown?
The championship leader has gone around, and I think, yes, he has been tagged as well by Leo Chequered. So Jesper Ericsson is trying to get himself back into this race. He doesn't have the mechanical flag. He'll keep going. He's now behind Ed Shelley out there at the 34, one of the main contenders for the championship. But that is big, as now Gary Ho looks to capitalize.
We're going to get the replay here, and he's just going to get loose on this left-hander coming down the hill. You're going to see it just get yawed out. There it goes. It might have even been on a downshift, and then this car comes in, tags the left rear. So you got to wonder if there's any sort of damage on it. I'm actually riding on board with Ericsson right now. He's trying to make a move already on Edward Shelley, so the confidence seems to be there. You just got to wonder if the car is.
Yeah, that's the next question. Ericsson fighting with the steering wheel. Oh, he's really struggling there. I think it does look like he's got a little bit of right hand down.
It does, but it's also difficult to tell through this section while also arguing on track position with another car. I think that Ericsson definitely has the visor down. He at least has speed to keep up with Edward Shelley right now. So I think just kind of calm it down, collect his thoughts, and get back to it.
Yeah, still on as well, 11th and 10th. Blomqvist still holding Bjorn Ackermann at station, but this is actually some really clever driving here by Bjorn. He is just letting this race come to him rather than going out there trying to be the aggressor against Daniel Blomqvist.
Sometimes you want the clean air. I was mentioning it for the visual factor, and sometimes it's better to have the carrot out there and just kind of chase somebody along. Every driver's different, and actually, just as we clipped away, Ackerman slid out a little bit wide, so he loses just a bit of ground here as Ericsson still trying to make this move here on Edward Shelley.
Very difficult here at Versfeld to make that pass. Ericsson has to be very, very astute. Oh, sorry, Versiphen is the corner name. But now through the braid shine and up here, this is the toughest corner on the circuit, Exmuller corner.
All the way up the hill here from the lowest point, and you're right, it's difficult to get it into the corner. You also have to carry the speed through the compression, and here's what I think is the most difficult corner, Jake, because I always get it confused with the one you were talking about, and it's actually a little bit faster, requires a little bit more commitment, but it creeps up on you, and it looks so similar on entry.
It certainly does. Through the Lauda links, of course, where Niki Lauda had that almighty moment in 1976 that put him in the hospital for 45 days straight. Now, here goes Jesper Ericsson. I do not want to fight you one bit. Edward Shelley decides I am prioritising finishing points. Didn't get anything to speak of last time out. And oh, in the grass, what a save. Jesper Ericsson is on the ragged edge.
You call that the red mist, and that's driving over the limit there, and he almost wrecked it all by himself after making that pass. So you could say that Ericsson is driving at 12 tenths right now. Like I said, sometimes you just need to take a little bit of a breath, and there he goes out of the carousel as we were watching Togo Hisada.
Yeah, and there he loses back out again. Shelley's going to find his way through, but they will now head up towards Hoheart. And that then for Ericsson is going to be a case of, you know what, you're going to have to just dial it back because you're not going to gain anything by trying to outmaneuver a circuit like this one. Through the top of the circuit now, and it's a descent from here on outwards. Some brilliant work by Shelley, the Fusion Gold team. Åkesson as well, I think, has just lost a place.
I saw that too. I think it was Tom Guest that got by him, but this is Tom Guest on your screen right here. So we just saw that pass go by that 959, and I think that Tom has a little bit more pace than what his 16th place currently is. Wouldn't be surprised to see him start to run up the road. He's got a long ways to go, though.
He's got a long ways to go. I have to say, give some credit to Oye Zamioa because he has caught back up to Togo Hisada here. He's pinned it back to that very nice, very comfy 0.6 of a second for car number 6. And this, for Togo Hisada, would have been last lap. oh, I've got a chance to break away. Zamayoa's gone, no, sir. You're going to have to sit and get put in the pressure cooker, and you are not going to have a freebie here at the Nordschleife.
And it's good to see Zamayoa hanging up there, applying that pressure, because it basically means that Togo can't drive any more conservative than what he's doing. And if you'd ask me, I do think that Togo is probably driving at 9/10 right now. He realizes how fast they are. So I think that it's allowing Zamayoa to be right there with them. And as long as Zamayoa is there on the last lap, that means we've got a race, and who knows what can happen.
Well, who knows is always the best question. That's why people stay to try and find out, jumping up over a lot of the bumpiness of that final section. There is still fifth and sixth right now. Leo Sequeira, who did have that tap earlier with Jesper Eriksson, he couldn't avoid it. And Gary Ho, who has been so silent on the back of all of this, just trying to be as patient as he possibly can. Now here comes Jesper Eriksson once again. This time on Edward Shelley is going to be a little bit more cut and dry, you'd feel, Joey.
Yeah, and he's all the way clear here at the end of the straightaway, so as long as he's able to hit the brake marker, you can just kind of hit the reset button right now, say, all right, I'm going to start a new lap at the Nordschleife, and starting at turn 1, I'm going to keep it clean and just carry that through, hit the virtual reset.
Yeah, and here on lap 7, that's where focus is going to be. Now, GSRC replay, this is Tom Guest, who finds out that it's miss, and this is just before the overtake that we've seen, and he goes hard there into the corner, and he finds himself around at Verschiffen corner. That is so easy for that to happen, and that was why Åkesson got through and why Guest got back through.
Very, very lucky for Tom Guest. And I actually think we've got a big problem on the racetrack. You're right, that was Bjorn Ackerman hard into the wall.
Well, it's at the perfect time because he can jump immediately into the pits, but he was just trying to take, I think, a little bit too much out of this circuit, and it's bit him back. And it's not often that you say that, but he is desperately trying to find his stall. Oh, Austin Powers, why not?
Yeah, that's exactly, you called it right, just a huge tank slapper, and thankfully the one fast repair literally one corner away. Talk about some of these other drivers having to take that tow truck, sit there and have the conversation with the tow truck driver till they get back to the stall.
The way I'd like to say it here is that Bjorn Ackerman is back out and going again. I'm not sure he really got into his stall properly at all. Martin Persson, though, here is going to find himself now down the inside, and he will pass Daniel Blomqvist for position. So that is Blomqvist now looking at prioritising what he wants up over there. Look at that, it's so scary when the fronts land before the rears then at that section of road, because you've got no guarantee you can put the power down and save yourself through that. You want to try and land as flat as you can there, like what Sam Harper did.
We're going to watch a few of these cars jump over that hill. There goes Gary Thomas there, and there's the like of Tom Guest, Bjorn Ackerman, as they all make the jump. And like you were saying, they're all trying to keep the car as steady, as calm as possible. When you have less than 4 tires on the ground, 2 tires isn't as good as 4, 3 isn't as good as 4. You want all 4.
Yeah, you do want all 4. It's very much a case of if you've got all 4 on the ground, you've got all 4 contact patches, you've got the maximum amount of grip available to you, and we are just about at the halfway stage of this race. Togo Hisada, your race leader as things stands, leads by a minimal margin over Oye Zamayoa in second. Topi Korteniemi is the fastest driver on track. He's in third, but he's got a long way to catch up to these top 2 drivers. Brian Boozma, a very respectable 4th place. This is the battle on screen. Leo Sequeira 5th versus Gary Ho in 6th position. These 2 scrapping it out about half a minute off of the race lead, with Jesper Eriksson, the championship leader, getting himself involved in an incident. He's in 7th, and we don't know how much he's going to be struggling with his car as Ho slides it through the corner. It's 8th for Edward Shelley, who is proving that he's doing exactly what he needs to. Jeff Schmeier having a very nice, solid performance. He's 3rd in the championship right now, and he will gain some big points on Garen Batten, the way things stand, who is currently 2nd if he stays in 9th, with Martin Persson rounding out the top 10.
Well, and as we watch these 2, it'll be interesting because we're about halfway through this race, right? And Jesper Eriksson, about 5.5 seconds behind Gary Ho here, but I know that Eriksson's got pace. If these two start to kind of fight it out for position, that means the pace is just going to drop off even more, and it's not going to happen immediately. It'll just be interesting to see how it develops, because these two right there that we were watching, they've been inseparable for the previous 7 laps since we went green.
Yeah, and there is Ackerman getting through on Tom Guest, and the chemical symbol there for Fusion Sim Racing on the side of the car. But you still have a little bit of, I would say, trepidation around every lap, because you can do this lap after lap after lap. There'll always be something new that catches you out, no matter where you are on circuit, no matter how many laps you've done.
Usually it's the first third of the track that catches me out, Jake, lap after lap after lap, because I don't make it past that first third.
Well, I'm not much to really say either, because I don't make it past the first third much too. It's very much a case of drivers will practice the first third of this lap more than anything else out there in the world. And once they've got that down pat, you'll be surprised how many incidents are in the second, the third, and the third third of this circuit, just because it is so easy to go, right, I've got to get the first third correct. I've done that. Now what?
I agree, and it's just kind of a learning process. However, the best part about iRacing and these sims is that you get to go out and do it. You get to go out and practice lap after lap, crash after crash. You don't have to worry about any hospital bills. You don't have to worry about any crash damage, putting new tires, consumables on the car. So if you wanted to go out and learn the Nordschleife and the Nürburgring, well, guess what? You could go out there and do race after race after race in these things. And from what I'm hearing behind the scenes, that's something that Gary Ho has put in. He's a bit of a veteran here in the 49s on the Nordschleife.
It's one thing to note, though, Joey, that if you do crash here at the Nordschleife, if you take your own car, you are liable for the damage repair bill of the Armco.
You know, I'm not surprised. There's several racetracks that are kind of like that, considering that it's a little bit more public land. Yeah, right, you break it, you bought it.
Yeah, and that's why it's one of the most enthralling bits of road you can drive out in Germany or in the world, so to speak, but one as well that you have to tread with great caution and drive, believe it or not, drive within your limits. This is one of those tracks. Orkerson giving chase to Tom Guest, as they have been doing for the last couple of laps, but still it's a case of trying to stay where they can. On the Dottinger Hove, though, here is Gary Ho, and this will be his first foray inside the top 5 with that pass. Heading down through now towards Tiergarten, 2 tires in the grass.
Yeah, and, you know, he's not the first driver to get caught out by that. So a lot of these cars, if they don't take the full racing line, you know, if they're pinched in from being too wide or something going into it, it's easy to lose it and go off into the grass. But this is the first time that Gary Ho inside the top 5. He doesn't have anybody in front of him to chase, so let's see if he can keep up the pace or if he needed that carrot. I have a feeling with how many laps he's done around this place, he's in a comfortable position.
I'd say he's very comfortable right now. Ed Shelley still giving that chase to Jesper Eriksson, the championship leader. And this is not where Jesper Eriksson wants to be right now, because he is being kept awake. He is being kept honest at this moment. And when you have that constant needle right there behind you, it's that extra additional pressure out there. Oh, if I make a mistake, someone might get by. That's not what Jesper Eriksson wants. He just wants to be nice, he wants to be calm, and he wants to run through towards the end of this race. If I could say anything right now, I think that Jesper Eriksson is the sort of driver right now, Joey, who is just praying that he could go to MTCR Australasia at Mount Panorama on April 14th.
Well, I just think that the day that he's had here today, you're right, he's being kept honest by Edward Shelley right behind him. And if I could draw some parallels, right, if you're driving your car along and maybe there's a police officer behind you and he doesn't have his lights on at all, but you question, oh my gosh, am I speeding? Did I do that right? And all of a sudden, you're not concentrating on the road in front of you. So Eriksson definitely being kept honest right now by that car behind him.
Officer Shelley reporting for duty, it seems. Chequered is there, just in front. This 5th and 6th place battle continues to be one of these to keep in mind. Now, this is a very unique circuit in the sense that you will have entire villages, Joey, based on the inside of this racetrack.
You know, that sounds appetizing to me, Jake, because maybe if you get left out of a corner, if you have a crash, you can hop out of the car and go get some food.
You know what? I totally agree with you. It is a long moped ride back to the paddock, so to speak.
I don't doubt it, and I'm sure from most of the places here, it is an uphill moped ride, so you better have enough gas in it.
You better indeed. Brian Boomsma, P number 4 at the moment. What a drive he is having. We saw earlier on in the race, he threw the gauntlet down to Topi Kortuniemi. Not many people do. Yes, he's now back by 8 seconds, but he gave Topi Kortuniemi something to think about, and not many drivers can do that.
If we go back and look at it, I loved seeing it, right? We knew that Topi had the faster pace, but Boomsma had the racecraft, and it might have been that he just doesn't know the Nordschleife as well as Topi Kortuniemi. Couple that with maybe not quite as much time in the 49s, but he said, I came here to race. He put on the racing gloves, and he put up a good fight.
Yeah, and he still is, because he's got a long way yet to decide whether he can be a contender in this race or otherwise. There is still the sniff of a podium available depending on what happens in this one with those at the front of the pack. So keep him in mind during the course of this race, because there's still a very long way to go here around the Nürburgring Nordschleife and the industry Fahrten layout that they are on at this point. So he is one of those drivers to keep in mind. There are a few battles, but they are starting to just string out a little bit, like to Jonathan Jourdain, for example, starting to catch the back of Sam Harper for 12th place.
As we're watching Brian Boomsma, I've got to give him credit because I'm looking at the lap times. It was a 6:38 that last time, and when he was holding off Topi, it was around the 6:40 range. So it shows that Brian definitely picking things up as the laps click off. And I know that we were talking about a pit stop earlier. In practice, I saw Togo Hisada run 13 laps consecutive, and I actually think these cars might be able to stretch it all the way here, the full 15 laps, without having to come in to get any fuel.
Now, normally, when it comes to this series, these drivers run a distance that I would say is about an hour or so. That's about as far as it goes. So they are going a bit longer than that. So it will depend on how much life they do have inside the fuel tank and how much they can really work and respond with that. So it might just be a case here of a splash and dash and go. It might actually be the case here that they can make it all the way to the end. It is very dependent, but of course, fuel limits, you can go an hour and a half on a tank normally in any sort of machinery on the iRacing service. You've done a very good job.
Yeah, it's basically which are you going to do? Are you going to go get the cardio machine and do the long run? Or are you going to lift the heavy weights with the sprint? But we're going to find out if it'll be that splash and dash or if it'll just be a huge slide from Zamayo. And hang on to it, bud. That was extremely close. It's going to cost him quite a bit of time coming out onto the straightaway.
I think this is the moment where Togo Hisada will snap the rubber band that Oye Zamayo has got. And this will be a very, very tough ploy. Saying that, though, Zamayo is still picking up the hundredths and the thousandths of a second, up at 311 kilometers an hour. I think he's got a car that is slightly better on raw power, on a straight line, compared to Togo Hisada. So I think this is going to be quite telling in terms of how they've set it up. Togo's got a car that's slightly better, slightly looser than what I would say Oye Zamayo has got. Zamayo has got a car that's very pointy.
I was just noticing that myself, looking at the top speeds going down the straightaway, and I know that we've got quite a few people watching that are very familiar with these 49s, and maybe is that just gearing? Is it ride height differences? What would bring out 2 to 3 miles an hour on the top end there?
Well, there is going to be a lot that goes through, but one thing we do know about Togo Hisada is he does love a car that is loose, and because he likes a car that's loose, that has a bit of turn to it, he's going to be someone who's doing well. Now, I am just seeing Jonathan Jourdain. Oh, Jonathan Jourdain's had a problem out on circuit. I think he spun it round, and that's why he's dropped the order. And that is not in the nice place on the circuit that he's gone around. That was heading right up through on that rush towards Plantsgarten. I think he was very close to that, and he has nosed it in the barriers, and he does have the black and orange mechanical flag.
Heavy front end damage on this number 15. So he's just trying to get it back to pit lane right now. We're going to get a GSRC replay, and basically he's going to be coming down the hill here, and oh man, just over the grass, loops it to the left, and head-on impact into that guardrail.
Look, there's nothing you can do really at that point. That is pretty much that. And also out of the race now, Bjorn Ackermann has retired from the race too. So there's two drivers then in a world of trouble, and Ackermann's day is done, and done quite substantially.
As we catch back up with Leo Sequeiro chasing Gary Ho here, working lap number 9 down the hill through one of the fastest sections of the racetrack. It really is crazy the speeds that these cars travel around here, and with no downforce and old tires, you really have to lift off early, get on the brakes very, very early, whoa these things up.
Yeah, because you got to go, whoa, that's not quite what you want. Now, this is Bjorn Ackermann's crash, and this is not a place you want to have it here through Versiphen. On the brakes, it's a small right into the left, and look at that. When a car's going backwards into the walls down at Versiphen corner, you know that it's never, ever going to end well.
Downhill and going too fast, you're usually going to end up in a barrier, jumping over the curb, and that's exactly what happened to Ackermann down there, hoping for a better race another day.
He certainly is. Sequeiro still keeping his race open with Gary Ho, moving through now the middle sector, and now looking down the hill at Kesselchen corner here, the right-hander, which you absolutely have to hook off the exit because the track does narrow up. It's one of the widest sections into one of the, I would say, most brought together sections on circuit. Now through hit, miss, hit. And this is where you're going to have to be pretty much holding on, because you know that in about 5 corners time, you've got a great chance to make some overtaking action happen.
Yes, however, remember these two kind of have been attached at the hip the whole race. It was Leo Sequeiro leading Gary Ho, but ever since Gary got around Leo, I'm looking at timing and scoring. They have both set their fastest laps of the race, so a 6:40.1 for both drivers that last time around. I wonder if the pace is actually a little bit better with Ho out front and Leo Sequeiro taking notes.
Oh, Zamioa's in the wall. Oye, Zamioa from second place is in the wall and towed.
That is extremely unfortunate. That means it is all up to Togo Hisada. Now, remember, we saw in the last lap Zamioa flirt with the grass and almost end up in the guardrail. Well, this time, unfortunately, it bit him harder here.
Well, it's Bravery Bend. It's the toughest corner out there. He just grabs the grass off the exit. He does everything to try and save it. And into the barriers he goes. The front nose continues on for another 150 meters or so. That is a hefty, hefty shunt for Oye Zamioa. He will have one fast repair to get back into this race, but he will have to use toe time to wait to get back going, and that will cost him an extra 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's exactly why we saw Jonathan Jourdain limping that wounded car around, because it's faster than the tow truck, and just with a damaged car that bad, Zamioa had no choice.
That is a hefty shunt, and one which is fully down to pushing too hard. Speaking of which, oh, you can't get much closer than that. Martin Persson, Sapphire Simsport, just about gets away with it. That's up at Ardenauer first that he's had that moment, and he is lucky gravity was on his side to stop him.
Yes, indeed. Sometimes you need the uphill to help you out a little bit in saving you around the Nordschleife. And this is Togo Hisada live pictures as he jumps his way down. We've seen so many of these drivers really just uncomfortable over the bumps. Looks like Togo Hisada is just kind of on a skateboard out there, just having fun on the playground.
I think he's definitely having fun, and this is his playground. He loves driving around here. There's this fantastic clip of him, I think it was either last year or 2 years ago, where he went full sideways through Flugplatz corner, saved it, and I think it was #1 iRacing highlight of the week a couple years ago. So it's something where Togo Hesada, he does have an affinity around this place. He does know how to hook it up.
And it's not just around this place. If you watch the 49s, you know who Togo Hesada is. It really is amazing what this kid from Japan can do inside this simulator. You know, week in, week out, no matter what the racetrack, if it's an oval, if it's a road course, he'll be up front.
And he is, of course, the Lotus 49 reigning champion, Joey.
Yeah, and I was going to say it doesn't even matter if it's 49s. He shows up in the 79s, and he can also be having a bad day. I mean, how many races have we covered that all of a sudden he's way off the pace in 5th, 6th, or 7th, and he hooks it up after a couple laps. He's just so quick at learning out there. We could go on and on about this driver. He really is the class of the field here today.
He is the class, and that 635.1 is just the icing on top of what has been a very brilliant run for him as he starts lap 10 and 15 with just 6 laps to go. There's David H. Baker trying to get as many points as he can. Now, this is start number 100 for him. He's just the 8th driver in Majors history to reach the 100 club, and this is what sim racing is all about. It's those drivers who turn up week in and week out and continue to try and put their best foot forward. He's not having the greatest day today, but the one thing you can't lack him for is trying, and he is trying to get up to Jan Stefan in 19th place.
Yeah, and Jan is about 4.5 seconds up the road here, so I know that both David Baker and Jan Stefan probably not having the days that they wanted after that first lap, but still chugging along out here, collecting incredibly valuable points, albeit in 19th and 20th position.
Yeah, but those points, they will add up towards the end of the season, and someone like Garen Batten right now absolutely is going to need those points because he is going to drop behind Jeff Schmeier if he's not too careful in 8th place overall at this moment in time. Now here is Sam Harper, eyes on Daniel Blomqvist for the move. This is to jump up inside the top 10, and Sam Harper takes it with aplomb. Look at that.
Yep, nice and textbook. We've seen a lot of the passes down the straightaway, taking advantage of the draft, and thankfully everybody avoided the grass this time, so Sam Harper into that 10th place position as we check back. Now this is going to be Travis Henderson in the number 24 car. He's actually up 5 positions from where he started back in 22nd, so chugging along right here for Travis.
Yeah, 3 seconds a lap slower than the car in front. That's Ray Partridge. Did a 6:54. Henderson that last lap, a 6:57. So Garen Batten's catching him at a rate of 13 seconds a lap. He'll be there in 2 laps, Joey.
Yes, he will be. And the other thing that I was just curious in seeing, this is Ray Partridge now up in the 17th place position, but it looked like Oye Zamayoa got back on the racetrack out there. So we've gone from 20 cars running to back to 21 now.
Yeah, so Zamayoa still going, but all the way down in P13. He's been able to get himself back going, so he only lost 2 minutes there in the tow time and getting himself back going again. So that's rather crucial there for Oya. He's only lost 2 minutes, and he's still got a top 10 in the sights. I wouldn't put it past him to catch the group right now that's up in front, and this is a group that's also being slowly reeled in right now. Ho and Sequeiro have their eyes planted behind them because that, they can just see in the back of shot, is Jesper Eriksson trying to find everything he can to jump back up to these two and get a top 5.
We were kind of foreshadowing that. Is Eriksson going to be able to close down on these two? And I really do feel that Gary Ho is probably the faster, I shouldn't say faster, but maybe the more comfortable of the 2 drivers between Leo Sequeiro and this number 4 right in front of him. And I'm looking, they have set their fastest laps the last couple laps, so they are at their maximum pace.
They are, and at pace number 100, They don't really have much room to go apart from that, so all they can do really is look behind. They've got to drive their own race, and you know, there's an old adage that comes out along by a legendary commentator known as Murray Walker. Catching's one thing, passing here, Joey, very much another.
And let's add to it, shall we, Jake? Because remember, Ericsson has had a frustrating race so far. He's been off the track a couple times, and not only that, but he's made some self-inflicted mistakes. How is he going to approach the situation when he catches two cars that he's quite confident that he's faster than?
I think confidence is very much going to be key, and the question is, how rash is he going to be with Chequered and Ho in this final third of the race? That's going to be the big mark. Now, Zamayoa here, I think, has just made a pass, and he's got around Gary Thomas, and that will put him up then into P12, and he'll be looking now at where he goes further forward than that. So if he can jump up to Blomqvist, to Harper, top 10'sville, not a million miles away. So Zamayoa, he will be driving with everything he's got available to him. In the back of his mind, he will think, now I was on for a podium, now I might not even get a top 10.
You're right. I think that it's not a million miles away up to 11th and even to 10th place, because those two cars are grouped together. So I feel with the pace, the outright speed from Oye here, remember, he was chasing down our leader. He should be able to close it up here in 5 laps, and we'll see if he can still get that top 10.
There's your race leader, Togo Hesada, 13, nearly 14 seconds clear at the front of this race over Topi Courtaniemi in second. Here is someone who, quite simply put, you know, is out there winning so often, Joey, he's forgotten how to lose.
I think that's a pretty good way to put it. Togo Hassan has been very consistent, very winning-like, and Topi Courtaniemi has had his fair share of dominance as well in these vintage series. But I think when it comes down to the Nürburgring and what we're seeing here today, Togo Hesada has had a step above everybody else, and I feel that he's just kind of toying with the field. I think that he still has another 2 or 3 seconds left on pace, especially once this fuel level gets down.
Yeah, when it gets right down to the limits, Togo Hesada can go out there and absolutely rock everybody's world. But at the moment, I think he's very much well within his boundaries here, and he's just deciding that, yeah, this is how hard I want to race at the moment. Courtaniemi, absolutely no slouch. Someone who can definitely give him a challenge any day of the week. But Courtaniemi got caught on the wrong side of the split, so to speak, here today, Joe, with Brian Boomsma. Oh, and Togo just puts a casual 34-4 down.
That's what I was saying. I really do feel like Togo has pace in hand. He's just kind of hanging out right here. Let's see what Courtaniemi put down, a 35.126 himself. So that's also his fastest of the race. And I just think these two are going after that fast lap at this point.
I think they are, and I think Togo Hesada is absolutely flying. In terms of his practice times before this, he's only a second off the pace, so he is definitely not that far off. Now, GSRC replay here. This is Travis Henderson rushing around to Arenberg corner, and the back just completely goes on him, and he got fully on the binders to only make it a light skitter into the gravel.
And I believe as that happened, Gary Ho just overshot the very, very final corner. It was actually a little bit of a tank slapper and then left the door open. So Leo Sequeiro up into 4th. Gary Ho now in 5th.
Yeah, I think he just caught himself on the outside curve.
Yeah.
Didn't have any real angle to turn in.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a loose moment going into that I saw, and then it just kind of was unsettled. Didn't have the confidence, left the door open, and Leo said, thank you very much. But in the process of that, look who joined the party. Ericsson is right there. Is Henderson more problems?
Yeah, that's more than just problems. I think that's going to be day and done for Travis as he finds himself at the top half of the circuit in the barriers. We'll get a look first at there. Yeah, just caught the curve, just couldn't turn. So he was on the wrong side of the curve, went full Tony Hawk. Travis Henderson, though, will be a different story as he went forward. I think he just caught the curve, took a little bit too much, and the moment he tried to turn in, there was no grip in Travis Henderson's day. He's buried, absolutely buried in the Armco.
Could you say that he lost the 50-50 grind to varial combination in the manual out there? It just didn't work out.
Yes.
That's the Tony Hawk reference for you, Jake.
That is absolutely what happened. There you can see it. Bang. Straight in. Nothing you can do. Wheel goes absolutely parallel straight. And that would indicate if he's gone off like that. The way that that's gone straight, that indicates controller.
Could be, you know, in the virtual world, we have our own host of problems, whether it be USB disconnects, or just kind of wheels actually finicky, even be pedals. So in the real world, we're used to seeing transmissions go and wheels fail and all sorts of stuff. And this is actually, I believe this is the final corner here. A little bit of a slip up between Aucassin and I believe that was Jonathan Jourdain.
Yeah, no, Aucassin's just looped it all on his own. Jourdain managed to avoid it. Aucassin's just spun it.
Eventually get that replay, but Aucassin is all the way back to the 16th place, and this is that three-car train here, so it's Leo Sequeiro in the front, Gary Ho is that middle car, and Jesper Eriksson is just trying desperately to join the party. He's been hunting him down for the last handful of laps and got really, really close, but now all of a sudden it seems to be slipping away from him.
It's close, but it's not quite there yet. It's on the fringe. It's about 1.4 seconds. And this is the time of the race. We take a GSRC replay that if you're making mistakes, the sheer concentration factor around the Nürburgring Nordschleife is starting to tell on drivers.
Absolutely, and that was an example right there as we were watching that 959 car, very reminiscent of what we saw out of Gary Ho when it was on the switchback, right? It was just too much lateral movement and he wasn't able to catch it, and just a little mental mistake right there.
Hisada still clear by those 13 seconds that he's got in the back pocket here on lap 11 of 15. He now heads up through to Hohe corner, and now at what is the highest point on the circuit, will now make that descent for home. But he knows right now that he is 4.5 laps away right now, Joey, from notching another impressive victory into a cap that is star-studded with this machinery.
Can't say that he doesn't have enough trophies already. Like you said, he's just going to add another feather to the cap here. And I think in terms of Togo Hisada, it keeps edging him forward to one of the best sim racers out there, especially here in the 49s. He's just proving it yet again.
Yeah, this is specialist machinery, and he is a specialist above specialist. And would you say here, Joey, that he is starting to knock up into the category of, say, Journo Freacher levels of specialist out there in sim racing?
So I think that the 49s and the 79s are kind of a special category, Jake, because you really have to drive them. They're totally different than the GT3 cars or the LMP2s or the DPIs or GTPs or whatever you want to jump in that just kind of hauls the mail out there. I feel like if you can understand the driving characteristics of these cars, you actually understand vehicle dynamics a little bit more, and it allows you to jump from these platforms into others and be very, very successful and even go on to dominate those other series.
You absolutely do see that, and I think that he is the sort of driver who, compared to the elite, I still think he needs to find an extra half a second, but in terms of where he is right now at his stage of his sim racing career, he is flawless at this moment when it comes to this machinery. He's got this down pat, and he's doing brilliantly. Still on is the chase through Flansgarten now. Goes Ericsson, Ho, and Sequeiro, 6th, 5th, and 4th. The 4 car in 5th, the 22 car in 4th, and the 37 in 6th position. Through to Belafest, Ericsson! That's Ericsson off the road and in the wall.
That is going to be another guardrail hit for Ericsson. Does he have any damage? He's back up to pace right now. He's going to lose a spot, and that is so unfortunate.
Sequeiro as well.
Yeah, Leo Sequeiro just dropped out. You're right.
So the Beloff S has caught 2 drivers in 2 different places. Leo Sequeiro gone. Jesper Eriksson just about continuing on. Just like that, 2 of your top 6 in trouble.
I had to do a double take because I swore it was Ericsson that lost it, and then all of a sudden Leo Sequeiro was dropping down. So here's Ericsson You're watch the right side tires. Oh, upset over the jump. That's really what loses it. Into that left side guardrail. You gotta wonder if there's any toe link damage.
Yeah, that's the question. He's caught it very side on, so that might be his only saving grace here. But he is weaving across this straight a bit. I wonder how much he's struggling with that at speed.
We'll watch it down the straightaway. We've seen about 200 miles an hour.
Guest as well.
Oh no, more problems for
And
that
he's beached.
058 car.
That is not a place you want to be beached if you're Tom Guest. That is not the nicest moment in the world. Let's catch Chequered's incident first, though, because this was right on the back, so he gets over the top, but how does he take the bell off S? First part's fine, second part's fine. Just turned on him. And this again, you just catch one bump wrong around this circuit, and bye-bye wheel.
Yeah, there goes the donut down the road to another new home, and unfortunately has to hit that reset button. And yeah, just really, I was gonna make the comment right before they all crashed out, Jake, is that I was having so much fun watching that 3-car group because they were literally sliding the cars around every single turn. Well, I guess that time limit ran out for a couple of them.
Well, I guess, Joey, this means this is why we can't have nice things.
I guess so, but hey, at least it's the virtual world and there's no crash damage to pay.
No, that is very true, but there is pride to pay, and there is always that. Here's Tom Guest's issue in the Fusion Gold car, and this is how quickly it goes wrong. So he's down through, or I believe is one of the final sections of the circuit, and the back steps around. He jams into the wall. He rolls it back, trying to get it to stop, and then all of a sudden, oh dear, I'm beached.
Yeah, that's what happens when the drive wheels can't touch the ground. You're not going to go forward. You're not going to go back. No matter what gear you put it in, you got to wait for Tow Mater, the tow truck.
Oh, yes, you do have to wait, and that is going to be the big hurt. All that said, though, Oye Zamayoa here might just have himself a top 10.
Pretty incredible considering that he had one of the biggest impacts we saw earlier in the race. So great job just hitting that toe, getting back into the car, and getting back to business on the racetrack. And this is another one. Remember, we had just covered Leo Chequered hitting the wall, so he's taking that fast repair and finds himself back doing laps as well.
25 seconds off of Oye Zamayoa at this point. Oh, Harper. Oh dear, that's the top 10. Sam Harper up at the top of Fluke Platts has had a big one.
Not the first driver we've seen, and I believe that's going to promote Zamayoa up inside of the top 10. So now he does have that 10th place position. So now he just has to continue to hunt down Daniel Blomqvist. And I'm looking at lap times here. I believe, Jake, 8 seconds he took out that last time.
He'll be there this lap then by this pace then, Joey, surely.
That's what the math tells me, you know, but these sim racers prove me wrong all the time. Let's just wait and see.
Here's a look at Sam Harper up the top of Blue Platts. Oh, nose first, that would have done it. And then bang, no way to save that one in the wall at Blue Platts. And basically at that point, it's can I bring the car back home? Grabs a curb, and all of a sudden, oh, there goes the steering wheel and 3 wheels on my wagon. You can't Michael Schumacher that all the way back.
No, definitely not. I mean, I'm sure that he could, but the safe thing to do, definitely pull it off to the side of the road exactly
Chequered's
what
off again.
Sam did.
So Leo Chequered's just had another little issue on the curb, and that looks very fifth hand.
Oh, and now around again live as we come to him, and you see the nose cone already missing off of the front, and there goes the reset, waiting for Tow Mater again, unfortunately.
Well, he won't have a fast repair this time, so that pretty much will signal the end of his race. So Leo Chequered is officially out here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and the Green Hell has decided that it wants to take names and write them down in the death notes.
Edward Shelley in the 6th place position, currently chasing down Jesper Eriksson as we get this GSRC replay of exactly what happened to Leo. So this happens coming up the hill here. He's just going to have a loose moment. You see the tail really kick out, and he's going to make a hard impact with the guardrail, and then we caught the second spin live.
Compression gets someone through the foxhole and up towards Ardenauer first. That is a heavy, heavy hit for Leo Sequeiro, and his race is done here at this moment in time. Rushing down, though, Oye Zamayoa has caught Daniel Blomqvist. This will be for 9th position. Around the outside, and that's Oye Zamayoa in the fence.
That is not what you want to do when you're trying to make a pass, and we're going to see if he's got any sort of damage. And that was just a pure misjudgment on Zamayoa's part. He's got plenty of pace to pass the 988. Just executed it very poorly.
He doesn't have the mechanical flag, so he'll be able to keep going, but that will be with a little bit of a hefty shunt in. He'll feel that somewhere in about his rib cage, I would have thought, with that sort of hit. The shell of the body would have just crinkled in a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm trying to hop around on my cameras to really take a look. I don't see that the steering wheel is kind of off-center at all, and he's right back on the tail of the 988, so whew, he might have gotten away with one.
He's a very lucky lad if he has got away with that. That much does need to be said. Zamayoa chasing down the field, and he knows how important it is to try and gain his places. You've got a top 10, and Togo's got another fastest lap.
Are you surprised?
No. Are you?
No, I'm waiting to see really how much faster he can go. 33.2, and we got 3 laps remaining. And just for everybody watching, these cars, they don't fall off on pace whatsoever. This is Zamayoa finally making his way around Blomqvist, who pulled over and let him by. But the lighter they get on fuel, that means the less weight they're carrying, they just get faster and faster.
They absolutely do, and Zamayoa, who is now up into 9th position, is going to be very fortunate that he's still in this race and going. Now watch Edward Shelley here in 6th place right now, trying to take P5, because he is now absolutely caught the back of Jesper Eriksson, and the championship leader, who has been involved in 2 incidents here today, is looking around going, I really don't want to be fighting with someone who on their day, which Edward Shelley certainly is an on their day driver, on their day can challenge me.
Well, and I just think that Eriksson is not having his day, right? You were talking about Edward Shelley having a good day. Well, Jesper is probably looking to forget today, and he's still probably looking through his notepad saying, how have I made so many mistakes here? But there is still 3 laps remaining, and at the Nürburgring, that's plenty of time to regather your thoughts and really ultimately pull away from this 34 car. That you look at the pace, Eriksson is faster. He just has to have the confidence to do it.
Look, there's still 20 minutes left in his race. He's basically got an entire street stock race left to go.
You know, we were reading the messages from Mick Claridge here behind the scenes, and this is pretty much like a normal race for the 49s for Togo Hisada now.
Absolutely is. It's a comfortable lead that he's got, and the chase still on though. P5, P6, Eriksson versus Shelley, and as they run out of Flugplatz, they will head towards Schwedenkreuz corner, and then Arenberg that follows after that. One of the fast sections, over 300 clicks, but they do have to hit the brakes early, give themselves that momentum through the left, get a little bit more on the pan, then the big break into Arenberg corner, and this is basically, that bridge is your checkpoint marker. Right, you've done the first little bit, up the hill you've got to go.
Yeah, and this is extremely fast down the hill before we get to the compression. I'm checking the speeds. 185 miles an hour is what those cars were doing right there at the bottom of the hill, and then once you get up to the top, you got to whoa this thing way down. I'm seeing about 60, 55 miles an hour through that section right there. So a good 130 miles an hour difference just in a matter of a couple hundred yards.
And you have to consider as well here, Joey, that this is machinery that can go up to speeds that a modern Formula One car can do at this moment in time. But it just has the stopping speed of, I don't know, the world's rotation.
Yeah, it does take a little while to stop the thing, and it would be very scary to drive these cars, Jake. It really would be like climbing inside of a soda can. I know that they've got the tube structure, but that is not a safety structure. That is purely a structure to build the suspension around, have the transmission and engine cradle in. It is not there to help prevent any sort of crash damage. It is as light as possible with probably some sheet aluminum that you could press against and wiggle quite a bit.
Well, you say it'll be a soda can. It's a soda can full of very, very explosive gasoline.
Yes, and, you know, the way they used to route the fuel lines too in some unique ways, that's the best way to put it.
Yep, so still the chase on then up at the top of the circuit then as Jesper Eriksson and Edward Shelley continue on their race for the top 5 with 2.5 of their laps left to go at the Nordschleife Industry Park for round 3 of the Majors Series, and the chase is very much on at this moment. Joey, it will be completely different next time we're here with the Major Series. We'll be at Mount Panorama Bathurst, and it will be TCR action.
I think the only parallel that you could draw between the Nürburgring and Bathurst is that, I mean, they both got a lot of elevation. They're both kind of on a mountain, but 49s to TCRs, I mean, the engine's in the wrong spot. The drivetrain is powering the wrong wheels. You're right. Just flip it all upside down.
Oh, yes. And this is going to be the sort of race that you look at and go, right, it's going to be touring style. You're going to have to get your elbows out. You're going to have to be aggressive. It's going to be very different to this, where it's just pure survival. That's what you're in for. Togo Hesada, absolutely dominant, having to force himself to run similar times like this because of Courteniemi behind, but is doing so admirably, wonderfully, in the way that only he can, knowing that he is 2 and a little bit laps away from victory.
And just to kind of put this into frame here, I'm looking at Togo Hesada's qualifying results, a 6-minute 33.260. His last lap time was faster than what he qualified at, so he is hooked up. But I also want to give credit where credit is due. Topi Courteniemi, a 6:33.7 that last time by. He might be 14 seconds back from Togo, but he is on fire as well.
Yep, he is someone who is out there on fire, and he is doing very well, and he is absolutely motoring. Now, there are drivers up and down the order that you do have to keep an eye out on. Martin Persson is certainly one of them in the number 16 machine. He's up 4 places from 12th to 8th place, but lest we forget, he wasn't here last time out, Joey, and he took an overall victory out there. So Martin Persson is doing everything right by being in 8th position and limiting damage.
Well, and he's up 4 from where he qualified at. So when you look at the big picture of things, you have some specialists in this race. And if you just want to collect the points, Martin Persson out here driving the number 16, doing exactly that, having a nice, consistent day that he can look back on and say, you know what, I got through it good.
And there's Jesper Eriksson, and that is the moment that we have just missed, because that is Edward Shelley, who is now through and up inside the top 5, and that was just before just after the Beloff S, a mistake running on through under braking that has given it again. It's another tag of the barriers for Eriksson, and that left-hand side of the machinery can't take much more of that, surely.
No, and it definitely looks unstable now, and I'm watching him go down the straightaway, so I think Eriksson, I wouldn't be surprised to see him pull it into pit lane, take that fast repair, because he's got 30 seconds back to Jeff Schmeier behind him, and I don't think that he's going to be catching Edward Shelley in front of him.
He's definitely got some steering damage out there, that much is clear, but how much is going to be enough to force him to pit at this late stage, running through the final stages then as he goes through. This is Jeff Schmeier, and don't tell me he's had a moment out there. Oh, he's just about got away with that. Tiniest to tap into the Armco. First mistake the Dog Bear bike car's made all day.
And that is why it is a 30-second gap from Schmeier up to Eriksson. So it was a little bit closer before. And I can note that Jesper Eriksson did not come down pit road to take that fast repair. So he says 2 laps remaining. I'm going to gamble it. And the only danger that I see here, Jake, is that if that damage causes another problem on the racetrack, you're going to have to sit there for the tow time.
And that tow time, remember, is about 2 extra minutes on top of what you've got. That would drop him way down the order to about Jonathan Jourdain and Melvin Orkerson at this moment, which would put him outside of that top 10. There's Jeff Schmeier in 7th position, and he will go into 2nd position in the championship with this result, with Garen Batten all the way down in P16.
And I can report to you that Ericsson just had another wall hit up over Flugplatz as we watched Garen Batten get that pass done. So this is just a very risky gamble for that driver of the number 37 car. And I think probably the reason why he did it, Jake, is just outside of his visor, he sees Edward Shelley for position, and he also sees Gary Ho just up the road. So if they make a mistake, he could grab those positions, just he's got to keep it clean.
He does, and he's got a car that's very second-hand at the moment. He is trying everything he possibly can to keep this one on the island, but at the moment, he's in tsunami-style waters, and he realizes that there are sharks infesting them at the moment. Ericsson throwing everything he can at it, but Edward Shelley would love an extra position here, knowing that the only real driver he's got to worry about championship-wise, who has been there and is scoring points, someone to keep in mind, would be someone like Blomqvist over the course of the season. Would be the only other driver that I would, sorry, not Blomqvist, Boomstra would be the only other driver I would really give some credence to and a bit of worry about. Ericsson right now has got to drive on pure instinct.
We're watching him go down the hill here. This is always one of the trickiest sections, and there he is off the racetrack again. And this is what I'm talking about here, is this is the gamble that Ericsson decided to take. He says, you know what, I can drive the race car fast enough to be competitive. It's just, it's some thin ice that you're walking on around here.
It is so thin. It is marble-like thin at the moment, where you've got to be absolutely on the limit. Full opposite lock-up at Exmuller. Jesper Ericsson is really dragging it all along, and there is Tom Guest. It looks like he's had a spin out there on circuit again. That is heading through the Beloff S.
A lot of these drivers coming to grips or not to grips with the Nürburgring today, and I think we foreshadowed it before we started the racing. You have to drive the racetrack, and this racetrack, sometimes, Jake, it's not very nice.
No, it's not, and they can see it. Oh, that is a heavy, heavy moment to deal with, and Guest has done very well, actually, there to keep it out of the barriers. He was pretty much fully on the binders, turn it round off the circuit. That's almost a perfect parallel park.
Yeah, and, you know, could you even argue that it was an off track? There was one tire still on the track.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's gone off the circuit, so he's more than entitled to do that. But now here is Mr. 100 Club, David H. Baker, who's going to move down the inside, over then through towards Tiergarten, and Tom Guest will lose one more. Baker up to 17th after his damage on the opening lap.
We're going to have to come around this corner here, and they will begin their 2 laps remaining here the Nürburgring. So still plenty of racing between these two. I wonder if Tom Guest is going to charge back up to David Baker, make a fight out of this. Like you were saying, this is for 17th back here.
This is for 17th, but this is your race leader, just a lap and a bit away from victory here at the Nordschleife Industriefahrten. Togo Hesada at 14.5 seconds clear of the field. Has he even put one wheel in the wrong position during this race, Joey?
Not that I have seen, at least. And I'm looking at this lap time. It's right on top of his last, which is a 6:33 low. We're coming up to the final lap. I'm curious, does Togo Hesada lift off of it and cruise to victory? I think that's very un-Togo Hesada-like. I think he's going to go after the fast lap again, considering Topi Korchinami is right there in the 6:33s as well.
Yeah, so there is a bit of pride at stake with the fastest lap. You're not going to gain anything for it, but as Togo Hesada rounds himself then through the final couple of corners out here on the circuit, through there on to start another lap, and this one, the final one, his 15th out here. He knows one thing and one thing for certain, that this has been his playground at the moment, and he will do everything within his power to get a fastest lap in the back pocket. 33s all around. Hysada's best lap there was on that last, on practice, was a 33.6. A 33.2 is what he will have to beat for the fastest lap of the race, and he was a 10th off on that last time through.
Watch on board here with Hysada as we start to charge down into this jump section. This first one, not so bad. It's the second one here that really launches the car, where we've seen a lot of the drivers have some mistakes and keeps it nice and clean. Just like an Air Force Thunderbird flying through there, no problems at all.
No problems there. There are battles up and down the order to keep in mind, the most important of which is the race for 4th position between Gary Ho and Edward Shelley. That gap was 3 seconds coming onto the final lap, on the penultimate lap. It's a lot less than that now, and Edward Shelley might be able to steal a 4th position in the dying embers of this race. But you're watching a masterclass of your race leader, Togo Hysada, rushing through the foxhole and heading through compression here. This left-hander up the hill you now head, and Ardenauer first. Here, the vista view that he finds at the top of the circuit.
You know, all you have to do is watch the steering angle on this front tire here. Look at how smooth he is through everything. We've been watching these drivers really slide the cars through the corners and the apexes, and Togo Hysada is just plenty smooth out there, like he's on rails. And Jake, you were mentioning Edward Shelley catching Gary Ho. What really caught my eye that last lap time by the 34, a 6:36. I mean, that is hauling the mail for Shelley.
He is, and he knows that he's got some houses to deliver to by the end of this race, and he is behind schedule, so he's got to go. Hysada now dancing through the middle sector, looking towards Versifen corner, and is that Jesper Eriksson around on the final lap? Jesper Eriksson, that might be his race done.
So unfortunate, and it was over the jump section where he lost control. That gamble not paying off for the 37.
That is huge in a championship context, because it will give a free kick here to the likes of Garen Batten. He won't lose as much. Jeff Schmeier is going to pick up some major points here today on Jesper Eriksson by this big mistake. GSRC replay here, and Eriksson, who has damaged the car 3 or 4 different ways, over the top of Flug Flat, tires dig into the ground, and the back steps around, and it's the biggest hit of the lot.
And he's just a passenger. He did absolutely nothing wrong right there. It's just that he had a damaged car going over a jump. It got unsettled, and there was nothing Eriksson could do.
Nothing at all, and because it's so early in the lap, look at how far he drops right now behind the likes of Gary Thomas here in 10th position, Jonathan Jourdain and co. This is going to be painful in the mind of one Mr. Jesper Eriksson, your championship leader, and it will give a huge boon as well to Edward Shelley out here at the moment, who of course has been very consistent, and these will be some very important points in 5th, if not 4th, if he can chase this down here heading towards Exmuller corner.
Well, you were saying catching and passing are 2 totally different things. We were talking about the driver of Gary Ho right in front of him and how confident he is around here at the Nürburgring. Does a ton of laps around this place. So even if Edward Shelley is hand over fist faster, you got to get around somebody who's very experienced and knows where to put his car.
Yeah, Gary Ho is such a driver, so Edward Shelley's going to have to be a little bit crafty if he wants to try and jump that final position in this race from 5th over towards 4th as they hit the back stretch. This gap right now, it's been very stationary over the course of this lap. It was 8 tenths when they crossed the line. It's 8 tenths currently, and Shelley right now is seeing that Gary Ho is more than a match for him on this final lap. It may have to rely on the Dottinger, but here is Hysada making his way through towards the final sections of this lap.
Just through this very fast section, come up to the mini carousel here through this long left-hander, and see, I don't even know where I am on this racetrack, Jake. That's how good I would be through this final third of a sector. Just completely gone. I would find myself not even in the guardrail. I'd be getting the food right there by those tents on the left side.
Absolutely would. Then through the very important left-hand bend there out on circuit. That one.
Here it comes.
The Schwalbenschwanz. And that is as close as you want to take it, Togo, as he goes through that miniature carousel. He is pushing at pretty much 10/10. The golden cuff now, and the long straight where he can collect his thoughts and realise that he is only a handful of corners away right now. This, the Dottinger Herb, the one great long straight in all of racing, similar to that of an unchicaned Mulsanne. This is one flat piece of road. Well, I wouldn't say flat, but it's one long, straight piece of road where Togo Hisada has dominated here today. Topi Kortaniemi's got close, but not close enough. Oye Zamayoa threw himself in the wall. Brian Boomsma didn't have enough today to throw him at it. He quite simply could be the next great thing. And at what is absolutely apocalyptically early times in Japan, he might just wake up the land of the rising sun. Togo Hisada to the line, takes round 3 of the majors.
With a 6-minute 32-second lap time, holy smokes. Togo Hisada, here comes Topi Kortaniemi. He is going to finish in second place. Let's see what Topi's last lap time was. Not even anywhere close. Togo just on another level, and this is going to be your final podium finisher. A great race right here from Brian Boomsma driving the 21, and Pearson problems.
That's big. Sapphire Simsport Atlantic car in the barriers. Martin Pearson is now going to have to try and limp that one home. And the likes of Oye Zamayoa has already gone through. Daniel Blomqvist might steal his place late. Brian Boomsma will come to the line. He will take third position overall. And the gap is a little bit too big behind. Gary Ho stepped it up when he needed to the most. Edward Shelley may not be able to get there. It might be 5th at best for him, but still an incredible drive.
This is that battle that you were talking about. It's really all up to Gary Ho just to hit the brake marker right here, not drive it off the track. Remember, he had problems in this very final corner earlier in the race, so might be lifting just a little bit early. Looks nice and tidy, and a great job from this number 4. Gary Ho finishing inside the top 10, or inside the top 5. Edward Shelley in 5th.
Yeah, so that is pretty much as telling as it gets, but there is your race winner, Togo Hisada, doing so absolutely fantastically. We're going to let the other drivers cross the line here over the next few moments. Jeff Schmeier will be next over the line, and this is a big race day for him. Huge points he's going to pick up with this on the championship leader, Jesper Eriksson, with his dramas on the last lap. We're going to step aside for just one moment on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll be back with post-race fallout after this. With David H. Baker, the last car on the leading lap over the line, our field had themselves a very difficult day today at the Nürburgring Nordschleife Industriefahrten. No surprises about who took victory overall. Togo Hesada picking it up 1 hour, 38 minutes, 51 seconds. He wins by 15 over Topi Kortaniemi when all things were said and done. Brian Boomsma would pick up the final spot on the podium with a great display of driving. Gary Ho and Edward Shelley would end up 4th and 5th. Jeff Schmeier will pick up some important points in the championship with his 6th place finish. And through all of the trials and tribulations, Oye Zamioa will still pick up 7th place overall. And for a point of contention, Martin Pearson does not like his name being called Martin Pearson, so his name is Martin Pearson. It's 8th place for him. Daniel Blomqvist will finish off in 9th place with Gary Thomas rounding out the top 10.
Jonathan Jordan here in 11th. Melvin Åkesson in his 959 will finish in 12th place position. And I actually think, yes, I'm going through, Melvin is the biggest mover up 12 positions. Started back there in 24th, so great drive for him. Garen Batten finishes in 13th. Ray Partridge also with a good drive, up 9 positions himself to finish in 14th. Jan Steffen in 15th. David Baker joining that 100 club there, finishes in 16th. And the last car on the lead lap, we documented the problems with Jesper Eriksson. Unfortunately, he did not even see the checkered flag out there, finishing in 17th. Tom Guest down a lap in 18th. Leo Sequeiro in 19th. Sam Harper in 20th. And then the rest of the names on the screen here include Travis Henderson, Bjorn Ackerman, Jorge Nieva, Luca Thungaard. They all were claimed by the Nordschleife.
Luca Thingo is not going to be very happy. His race stopped before he even was able to get it started here today. We do have a couple drivers here ready to have a chat with us. First and foremost, Togo Hesada, who goes back-to-back on 2 different days, 2 different podiums. But this time, Togo, top step, and this looks like it's your playground. You made it look easy.
Yeah, the setup is very, very much for this condition. That's really lucky for me. And just Topi, he just, that he's very fast, I know, but he's in the, the pack, and just checks up from the, second, third guy at the very early stages. So that's a very, very lucky for me. And fortunately, I just running out of everyone and maintain the lead.
Talk to me about where this love for the Lotus 49 comes from, Togo, because your dad was a sim racer, you're a sim racer, you're out there, you are absolutely putting in the time, the effort, you're finding some fantastic results and fantastic pace out there and fast becoming one of the legends of the classic series. So for you, where does this love come from and this drive to drive classics?
Yeah. Actually, my father playing the original Grand Prix Legends from the 1998, and my father just sometimes playing in my childhood. I'm just 4 years old or 50 years old, and someday, just one day, I tried to do that with help with my father, and the Lotus 49, just the first car I drive on the virtual world. So it's natural to fall in love with this car, and fall in love with this era and with this historic track. So that's why.
Well, that's one reason why you find yourself with an all-important victory. Is this just your way of just trying to wind down in terms of after a fantastic championship season, the Lotus 49s, more Lotus 49 racing?
Yes, I love this series. I love this mood of the communities and it's really, really fair racing all the time. So keep it going and take the more victories.
Well, more victories, always a good thing to see for you, Togo. It's another victory here today. The floor is yours for anyone you'd like to thank.
Yeah, Lotus 49 community and the GSRC broadcast team. Thank you.
Togo Hesada there joining us, getting the victory done and doing so over the driver that Joey Atterbury has just caught up with. He's stood by with Topi Kortaniemi.
Well, Topi, welcome back to the commentary booth. Congratulations on the 2nd place. It's not the typical 49 broadcast. Today it's the major series. How did it feel to run 15 laps at the Nordschleife, and are you worn out at all?
Oh, my shoulders are shot. I almost missed the race because I was thinking it was an hour later, and Togo asked me if I was not going to race like 10 minutes before the race, so I only got a warm-up start, and then it was a green flag. So, considering that, it went quite well.
It seems like you're in very good spirits after this one. I have to ask you, though, because you got a race in with Brian Boomsma after you had that little bit of a mistake early on. Were you expecting it to kind of throw it down the inside of you, or were you kind of expecting him to kind of follow you along, and how did you approach that situation?
Well, to be honest, I haven't checked the replay, but for me it seemed like a honest dive bomb if I hadn't moved over. Just before the apex, it would have been a contact, and I was planning us to just get away and catch the top two guys, and Badley was not helping that. So it got me a little anxious because Togo and Oyer was getting away.
I saw that you did have that overall pace laying down 6:33s at the end of it. Did you feel like it was just the track position that you were basically lost out on early on?
Yeah, no excuses. Like, if I wanted to win, I should have done a better qualifying, and Togo really had the pace. I mean, I was pushing for my fastest lap, and Togo did it with more fuel in the tank, so he had the legit pace faster than me.
We're getting the shots of that amazing save that you had, Topi, early on. My last question, how did you save it, and were you kind of amazed that you didn't hit the wall yourself?
I wasn't thinking anything at all at that point. I was trying to leave some extra room for Brian because I didn't know how fast he was going through the Flugplatz, because I planned to go relatively fast. So I land on the downhill part of the crest, so the car settles down quite quickly. But when I was cresting the hill, Brian was slowing more than I was expecting. I had to hit brakes in the midair, and that made a nosedive, and car was really unsettled after that. So I remember for the original Grand Prix legends, like the grandfather of iRacing, that the 2-foot save, like you hit the gas and the brake at the same time to lock the fronts and the car straighten out. I think that was just what saved it. I'm looking at it, it's 10 centimeters from the wall.
It was a crazy save, and I just want to say thank you very much for coming out here and racing, and congrats on that second place finish, Topi.
Yeah, thanks, Joey.
That was Dopey Korchinami, and like I said, finishing second today here, 15 laps at the Nürburgring.
15 very difficult laps here at the Nürburgring, but they are now complete, and that will bring the Majors Series over to a close. I want to give a massive thanks to the team here who has got it done, from Joey, of course, from Dougie, and from Daniel as well. Want to give a little shout out once again to our charity partner here for today's racing, Beyond Blue. For more than 20 years, people in Australia have placed their trust in Beyond Blue as a reliable source of mental health information, support, and hope. They are a big blue door for many in the community, a safe and reliable place for millions of people to access information, advice, and support wherever or whether they're well and want to stay that way, unsettled or struggling and need support, or in recovery and want to connect. It's their strategy of 2023, and it will be into 2024. Earlier, easier, together. Massive thanks, of course, has to go to all of the equipment that has helped get it done today. The likes, of course, of June Lalonde's music, which you can catch on Bandcamp if you haven't had the chance already, and all of the communication channels that we've been able to get all of this show over to you. Want to say that we've got some brilliant racing on the horizon, and that will be coming up very, very soon. So mark it down in the calendar if you haven't already, and get yourself in for a really great time. Until next time, though, ladies and gentlemen, with the season on the horizon, Jesper Eriksson's mistake opens up the door for Jeff Schmeier, and Garen Batten will count his lucky stars that he will be able to gain a few points as well. Race clean, race hard, and we will see you at Mount Panorama Bathurst.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Wow.